drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with an off-day episode of You Got Boston. Back in my apartment in Boston after spending yesterday in New York covering Brooklyn Nets, Boston Celtics at Barclays Center. So I'm going to try to do these on off days where we're not doing the Garden Report and when we can just kind of take a moment to reflect on how the last couple of days have been looking. So feel free, as always, to put your questions in the chat, and I'll talk a little bit about some things that I think are important or things that would be interesting for you guys all to hear about, including Kristaps Porzingis, which was my main takeaway from yesterday's game, as weird as that might sound, because he obviously didn't play. But he was really someone who really stood out to me, and it's who I kind of spend most of my post-game questions asking Mazzulla, Jaylen Brown about. So we'll talk more about Porzingis. We'll talk more about the Celtics, who start the season 10-3, and just observations so far from the first couple of weeks of the season. Still a very long road to go, but certainly I think we've learned quite a few things about this team that maybe we didn't know or we couldn't have expected. Payton Pritchard, Neemias Queta, even Jordan Walsh having a spot in the rotation early on, not something that I necessarily expected. So thanks all of you for joining. Thanks for those of you saying hello. It's always nice to see a lot of the familiar names in the chat. I'm starting to recognize all the names, so that's been fun as I've kind of gotten acclimated to being on the Garden Report. So yeah, basically, the way this works is feel free to put in comments in the chat. I will just go through and answer literally all your questions. We're going to do a shorter episode today because it's my mom's birthday, so I'm going to her birthday dinner after this. So we'll keep this to 30 minutes, but just wanted to kind of update you all on what I learned from just being in Brooklyn. I was in Charlotte a couple weeks back as well. Those are the road trips I've been on so far. I'll be in DC next week, and I'm actually going to Maine this weekend for the first couple Maine Celtics games. And so we'll hear, I'll have information and kind of just how Baylor Shireman looks, how Anton Watson looks, the other Celtics draft pick, and then just the other guys that are on the roster, J.D. Davison. Not sure if Drew Peterson will be in Maine. He's been mostly in Boston so far. But if there's anything in particular that you guys want to know or hear coming out of Maine, feel free to let me know, because yeah, I think right now my plan is to just be to be talking to those guys. I'll be posting clips on Twitter and on Blue Sky as well, which I'm on both right now. And yeah, so feel free again to continue putting stuff in. I just want to make sure, is my mic, I'm hearing that my mic is maybe too loud. I can go farther. Can people hear me okay? Let me know if it's bad. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to start with Porzingis, and then I'll go through your guys' questions. You've been muted this whole time. Haha. Thank you. It's my biggest fear. That's the problem with doing a solo pod, is that you really don't know if people can hear you. Okay, so starting with Porzingis. I was in Brooklyn yesterday. We're at Barclays Center, and we're tuned in watching warm-ups, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum going through warm-ups. I'll just say off the bat, Barclays Center was the worst energy of any arena that I've been to. And I'll just say, I've only been covering the NBA for about a year, so there's arenas that I haven't been to yet that I'll see this year, and then I'll maybe we'll get a better spot. But I've been to DC, I've been to Charlotte, I've been to Atlanta, a bunch of not necessarily the most well-regarded arenas. I think the problem is because there's so many Celtics fans in New York that the prices just go up because there's a demand for people to go. And then next thing you know, the arena is filled with Celtics fans. And they weren't even the most passionate Celtics fans. I feel like they were just kind of casual fans that maybe from Boston, or people that just wanted to see Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown play. And so, yeah, just really bad vibes in the arena throughout the game. I just thought it was very, very low energy. And then obviously after the game starts and Celtics fall behind by 10, we're all thinking, is this going to be another one of those games where the Celtics are trailing and this is a slow start? And they were able to overcome that and obviously ended up winning by 30. So that slow start ended up not really having much of an impact. But I was surprised even early on that the crowd wasn't oh, we're up 10 on the defending champs, going a little bit crazy. It really wasn't like that at all. And so Yeah, so that was just my initial takeaway from just being there. I've been to Barclays Center a bunch of times covering the New York Liberty, and it's night and day. The Liberty were just so, drew much more passionate crowds. Granted, I was covering the playoffs, so, NBA, WNBA finals crowds are compared to just like a meaningless regular season game. But I was surprised just to see the energy in the building or lack thereof. But I'll tell you guys who did have energy, and that was Kristaps Porzingis, who about an hour before tip off, he comes out on the floor, which he's been doing more regularly as of late. And he comes on the floor and just does his usual pregame routine. So his form shooting, his 3-point shooting, really deep threes as well. And then he just does like his little drills with the player development staff. So with the assistants, DJ McClay, who coached the Celtics Summer League team, he's one of the guys that works really closely with Kristaps Porzingis as well. And yeah, he was doing a little bit of contact work with them, goes through his whole routine, which is not unusual because he's been doing that all year. But I will say, I feel like there was a little bit of an extra pop as he was doing his warm up. Like he dunked a couple times. He was moving a little bit quicker than I've seen. And then really what stood out to me was his energy during the game. So during the game, he's sitting on the bench, and I normally sit like I have a kind of like a TV view of the court, but in away games, like you're always sitting somewhere different. And where I was sitting this time is I had a perfect view of the bench and specifically like a side view. So he was basically right in front of me the whole game, which is why it was on my mind. But he was nonstop on his feet every single literally every single timeout break. He went onto the court and like grabbed the ball, tried to shoot. Every single timeout break, he was talking to every single player. He was watching, and he's been doing this for a while now, but he was looking at the clipboard and like watching play development or talking to guys that were subbing out, like as though he was about to check in. And I asked Jaylen Brown about that post game, and he basically said like, it's great for us. He was very verbal today. He was super engaged, and it's a good signal. It's a good signal that he's coming back soon. And Joe Mazzulla also said that he's making good progress and just how important it is that it'll make the transition for him to come back a lot easier. So I wrote about that for Celtics blog. You can check that out. But yeah, basically that was just it was just an interesting side piece to the whole kind of story is that Porzingis is like, he just has a different energy about him that he had a month ago. Like almost like he's a couple weeks away from coming back. So I don't have anybody that told me that he's going to come back in the next few weeks, but I think initially the timeline was December. Honestly, at Summer League, when we talked to Brad Stevens, I thought that it might even be longer than that. Like I was thinking maybe January, but he seems to be moving really well. And I think that it's going to be one of those things where we're going to be surprised and all of a sudden he's going to be back kind of sooner than we anticipate. And so I'm seeing some questions here on Porzingis. I hope you get your Porzingis jersey back from your ex, Chris. And again, I think we're all kind of guessing. I mean, I was looking at Shams' report, and Shams is like, I've heard that he might come back at this point, but maybe he won't. And like, I don't think anybody has a definitive timeline, but I can just say I haven't broached this topic so far this season because I really didn't have any gut feeling about it. And after seeing him yesterday, both with his warm-ups and just his body language and engagement on the bench and just the way that guys were talking about him post-game, Payton Pritchard talking about him, Jaylen Brown, Mazzulla, after that, I do think he'll be back sometime in December, and he might just be a few weeks away. And yeah, all of a sudden we're going to get the Celtics PR notification that he's questionable for a game, or he's probable or he's doubtful, but not just out. And we'll see. And obviously, like the priority is going to be not just to make sure that injury is recovered, but that his whole body is ready to go back for NBA basketball. And it's been a very physical season. It's something that Joe Mazzulla talked about yesterday. He thinks the game is in a really good place, but that the league is very physical right now. And so, yeah, I think, you want to make sure that he's prepared for that type of thing, that he's prepared for, just being back and being able to brace contact and being able to, you don't want him to get injured again. And certainly we've seen last year that a lot of times, like, I think the injuries somewhat spilled over. So we'll see. Also, I don't know. I see it too on my screen. I have no idea what that is. I'm like so freaked out. I keep seeing it on the screen. I don't know, like, it looks like maybe like a bug or something. But I thought I was seeing it myself, so I'm just glad that somebody else noticed. I didn't like clean just now, so it's not like dust. I don't know. I'll investigate after this. Okay, so let me just scroll through here. I just wanted to get that Porzingis comments in. And I posted a bunch of stuff on Twitter and on Blue Sky, depending on what you're on right now, what you're using. And I have videos of just his body language to the bench, talking to Neemias Queta, just kind of talking to the guys. And so feel free to, if you want to, watch those, you can watch those. And let me see, I'll actually put my Celtics blog article. I have a new computer, so I can actually look stuff up during the chat. Normally this would make my computer crash. But if you want to read more about Porzingis and just like the way he's been impacting the team through the stretch, I just left a comment in the chat box with a link to that article. Okay. And then I don't know if he's doing 5-on-5 runs of practice. One thing I'll say from covering the Celtics and just covering basketball over the last year and a half is that a lot of times I was always like, oh, why can't we get information? And like the reality is that we ask, like, what is that? That's so weird. Like I see it on my screen. Okay, I'm gonna just ignore it. Okay, sorry for the distraction. What was I saying? Porzingis, yeah, we ask Joe Mazzulla about injury status all the time. Like we were trying to figure out if the Jaylen Brown thing was that a serious injury. He missed 4 games with the hip flexor strain. I had no insight from asking him about it. Sam Hauser's back thing. I asked Sam Hauser, like, how's your back been? He literally just said great. And it didn't, the way he said it, I didn't think it was great, but he said the word great, so that's the story. And so basically, yeah, like I don't think we know exactly what his status is, like what he's been doing. Abby Chin asked yesterday to Joe, like, what's he like? And he said he's making good progress. Like, that's all we have. So that's why I'm like trying to piece it together myself. Before game 5 of the NBA Finals last year, going through his warm-ups, like I was doing one of these live shows from the Garden, and I remember saying to you guys, like, I remember saying like to whoever was on, maybe probably different people than who are on now, but like I was like, he's gonna play today. I could just see the way he was approaching his warm-up, and like he had been doing it over for a while. So my point being is that like sometimes it's worth just like us observing and chatting with people and just like watching their body language. He's traveled with the team all year, so just him traveling doesn't necessarily mean anything, but yeah. So in any case, that's the Porzingis comments. Just scrolling through. Okay, Jordan Walsh question, is he playing himself out of the rotation? I don't think so. I think that there's not a long-term plan for Jordan Walsh to play significant minutes this season. He's still really young, still, not a ton of experience under his belt. And I still think that he might spend some time in Maine. Like that was initially where I expected him to be. And then obviously he jumped right in. But he was really kind of taking a larger role when Jaylen Brown was out, when Sam Hauser was out. So what we're seeing now with his more limited minutes, I think is more just a reflection of the fact that those 2 wings are available. And so that's what you want. You want Sam Hauser and Jaylen Brown. They do things that Jordan Walsh can't do, obviously, at least at this point in his career. And so he filled in really nicely for when those 2 guys were out. And, in my view, like he did his job. He didn't cost them. He was able to play good defense and hustle and just do what they needed from him on the floor. And he's not a guy that's going to give you 10 points a night right now. Like that's just not the reality of who Jordan Walsh is. But that being said, like I think he was taking advantage of the opportunity in the sense that he earned those minutes over guys like Baylor Shireman, Jaden Springer, and they trusted him. And I've asked around about it. Everybody's been really happy with his performance. I don't think that he was playing poorly, and that's why he's playing less now. I think it's more of a reflection of just the fact that Jaylen Brown is back, Sam Hauser's back, and we'll see. Pete, I'm seeing the Celtics Wizards game marketed a lot of Heritage tonight. I don't know anything about that, but I know that Porzingis still has really good relations in DC. And when I was in DC last year, he was just the fans love him over there. So I'm sure the fans that are here or whatnot, they'll be happy to see him. I'll be in DC next week, so we'll get some more. I'm sure he'll sign a bunch of autographs for people and things. But yeah, KP, I don't know the date of that. I think he's still a couple weeks away from coming back. Like, I'll just be clear, but. Even so, I just think he's getting a lot closer. Like probably he could play really soon. It's just a question of like, do they want to risk that? Question from Tom: what was your favorite part of covering the team in Brooklyn yesterday? It's a good question. It was honestly a pretty cool game because it looked like it was going to be another one of those games where the Celtics just kind of starts low and maybe don't play with a lot of energy and force. I really loved the way Jayson Tatum played yesterday. I feel like sometimes, not just on this channel, but like in general, like media covering the Celtics, like he can go under the radar a little bit just because he's Tatum. So there's not like a point to be made. Like everybody knows that he's their star. And I think in turn, he ends up becoming like underrated almost, like the same way that Derek White's almost not underrated anymore league wide because everybody knows how great he is. I feel like Tatum's kind of underrated in Boston. Maybe that take doesn't resonate for people, but yeah, he has been he was phenomenal yesterday. I think that he had a really intentional approach to the game. He took 6 threes, made 5, and just got everybody involved, 10 assists. And then this was kind of funny, but he was 1 rebound short of a triple-double, and he's not a guy that oftentimes gets or flirts with triple-doubles. And so I would have thought like maybe he wants to stay out there just to get that. And I think Joe like asked him if he wanted to stay out there. That's what it looked like to me. And he was like, no, like the last few minutes, the bench guys subbed in, Xavier Tillman, Jordan Walsh, who hit a 3. So it was just cool to see because sometimes you can't see on TV like exactly how those conversations happen. And he clearly like was not stat chasing like whatsoever. Not that I don't think there's anything wrong with like trying to get a triple double if it's late in the game and you're one rebound or 1 assist short. But even when he was 1 assist short, he took a shot with like 3 minutes to go because he was just like playing the right way and just doing what the defense was giving him. So that was cool to see. And I thought the post game he was kind of more reflective and just you could just tell these guys are not getting rattled by a loss. They're not getting rattled by even a really bad letdown loss that everybody else panics about. And I think the fan base is better off now than maybe people used to be because of the championship. But he talked post game about how like, this is one of those things where he's been in the league for 7 years. There's highs and lows and he's used to it and he's not going to overreact. And I think that's what makes him really special as a player and as a leader, that he doesn't have, he doesn't really like require someone telling him to calm down or, whatever. Like he can kind of keep his own. And I think sometimes it bothers people when he doesn't get fired up at the podium when they want him to. But I think for the most part, it's why he's able to respond to adversity like the Hawks loss and come out and dominate the game the way he did yesterday. And yeah, please, like, subscribe. If you're watching this on CLNS, you can subscribe to my channel. It's You Got Boston. If you're watching this on my channel, you can also subscribe to CLNS, where I do a post-game show after every game that I'm sure a lot of you guys I'm recognizing these names. A lot of you guys tune into that as well. But yeah, like, subscribe, comment, share. I'm trying to do these on off days because I'm doing the show during game days. So today was a good day to do it. And I'll do something from Maine too this weekend. Okay. Let's take a quick break. I'm just a message over from our friends over at Game Time. We've talked a lot about Game Time, but Game Time is in my opinion, honestly, the best way to get tickets for any event that you want to go to, concerts, shows, not just sports. It's my mom's birthday today. I mentioned that earlier. I'm going to dinner for her soon. And right after the show ends, I'm going to scroll through Game Time and figure out what event I want to get her tickets to, because it's really the best way to get tickets to see your favorite teams play, to do whatever else you want to do. My mom's not a huge Celtics fan, so I probably won't get her Celtics tickets. But if it was my dad or my sister or my brother, automatic gift, Celtics tickets on Game Time. So all you have to do is pick an upcoming game on the app, browse through seats on Game Time Picks. You can see exactly what the court looks like from that seat, which really helps. So if you want to get tickets and you want to see what the angle is going to be based off of like where the basket is, I'm really particular about where I sit, which is sometimes why I don't love my media seats, because I don't like sitting behind the basket. So on Game Time, you can actually see like where the seat is and what you're able to see from that spot. And there's a lot of other good features. There's all-in pricing, so you can see the upfront cost. Like I always feel like when you buy tickets, you can see all of a sudden you get to the end and there's surprise fees at checkout. No surprise fees here. Lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you have ticket coverage, so your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I've literally only ever used Game Time for buying tickets to anything, and it's always served me well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, so continuing to scroll through here. And by the way, I'm continuing to see whatever it is in my room, like floating around. So I'm really curious. I'm going to look forward to investigating this. I don't know if there's like a scientific answer that I'm missing, but and I don't usually believe in ghosts, but who knows? Who knows? And thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm still doing Celtics coverage on Celtics blog, and then also you can catch my WNBA coverage on SBNation.com. So feel free to check both of those things out. And then obviously we do a post-game show here on CLNS. Let's talk about Lonnie Walker, because Lonnie Walker for a long time was the most popular name in the house. I feel like everybody liked talking about him. There was just so much interest And everybody wanted him in Boston, and obviously he didn't get signed. And the most maybe revealing thing is that he didn't get signed by anybody and headed overseas where he's playing in Lithuania. Struggled in his first game. And for those of you that are online, NBA Central, which is one of the big aggregate accounts that kind of just like looks for engagement. No shade to NBA Central, but they posted a stat line where he was 0 for 9 from the field, and people were kind of trolling him like he's in the EuroLeague and he's struggling. And I think what I would say to that is, first of all, like you can struggle literally any level of basketball because if your shot's off, like it's not going to go in. But he has played better since. He's had a couple good performances here. And I don't know if he'll be back in the NBA or not. I think one of the things that I learned early on doing this career is that it's really hard to leave overseas and come back to the NBA. I mean, obviously, Yabusele is a great example. He's been really doing well over in Philadelphia. But I interviewed Jared Sullinger. He was one of my first player interviews that I did, and that's something that he told me is that he went overseas to China, and he's been great over there. He said he's a lot better physically, and he's a much better shooter than he was when he was in the NBA. But it's you're almost put in a box of you're an overseas player now. And so I hope for Lonnie Walker that if his dream is to come back to the NBA, that he's able to do that. But that being said, I don't think the Celtics are going to regret letting him go because I don't think that he would have played in the playoffs. And right now, I'm comfortable with the depth that they have. It's not perfect. There are definitely moments where I'm okay, Lonnie Walker would be useful here off the bench right now. When Jaylen Brown was out for 4 games, and I didn't know if that was going to be a longer term thing, I was thinking to myself, maybe this is something that would have been good to, would have been a good guy to have. But I think ultimately, we're talking something so negligible in the rotation that it's probably fine. And there are also guys there is an advantage in having Jordan Walsh. This person said, you need to gamble on young guys like Walsh. And at the end of the day, Lonnie Walker would have taken minutes away from some of those younger guys. And so even if you're not super high on these guys, it's, you want to give them a chance to the guys you drafted. So I think it'll be fine. And Tom, good observation. Yeah, I did think that Walsh had some good fourth quarter impacts. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how he's able to kind of pan out over the coming weeks, over the coming months. If he gets more minutes, if he goes back to Maine. I did a story on him a couple weeks ago for Celtics blog where I talked more about just his mindset and his approach. I think he's really kind of looked at it as why not me? I can go and grab some of these minutes. And I don't think he expected it to happen this early in his career, but he's been really happy with the way things have panned out. And so Lonnie Walker, yeah, maybe there's going to be a moment this season where they're really shorthanded and we're all kind of thinking it. But I think in the scheme of things, that's not going to be the reason why they do or don't win the championship. And that's probably what the front office ultimately landed on when they decided not to offer him a contract. Jaden Springer, meanwhile, I see him mentioned a couple times here. He is, he has really not played at all. And I was pretty excited about him entering the season. And I honestly don't know, what exactly he's been looking like behind the scenes that has compelled him to really be completely out of the rotation. I will say he's missed the last few games with right knee pain, tendonitis. And so he's been doing his warm-ups. I don't think it's anything super serious, but he's been on the injury report. So if you're wondering, why is he not even playing in garbage time or late game minutes? Payton Pritchard told us last year not to use the word garbage time. So I'm going to try to get that out of my vocabulary when describing blowout minutes. But yeah, I think that he's a guy that everybody's kind of curious about. If there is a trade at some point, I wouldn't be shocked if he got traded just because he's really not playing at all. And it doesn't seem like he's really inching towards playing, but we'll see. And we'll see. I don't know if his knee thing is anything more substantive. This is a fun question. Who do you think is better, Cam Thomas or Payton Pritchard? This is tough for me. I'm going to say Payton Pritchard. I think Cam Thomas, obviously, right now is accomplishing more on the floor just as a really high volume scorer. But Pritchard, to me, feels like just a really well-rounded player that is kind of ready for a larger role. And we're seeing it right now. I mean, he had 23 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds last night. And then, sorry, I'm overcoming a cold, so I'm trying not to cough. And so, yeah, I think he's a guy that right now is just more well-rounded. Cam Thomas's scoring abilities are definitely more proven than Pritchard's right now. Maybe this is my goggles of being a huge Pritchard enthusiast and someone who's been really high on his game for a long time. So maybe I'm a little bit biased here. Probably I am, but I would pick Pritchard right now over Cam Thomas if I had to pick, if I'm assembling a roster, because I just think he makes the guys around him better. Just seeing guys like Sam Hauser who had 4 threes last night, I feel like Pritchard is a big reason why, the guys like that have been unlocked. And so defensively, he's made strides. again, like the big thing that he has is just his size, but he's really a good defender, considering his size and kind of what he has to make up. So let me know if you guys are disagreeing with me on that. I'm a little behind in the comments, so it's possible that you guys are already disagreeing with me, but I'm just scrolling down here. Yeah, interesting question. Brown and Tatum both played the entire first quarter versus the Hawks. First time they've done so in I think years, maybe in the regular season ever. I think it was just a test. I don't know if the Joe was asked about it. I can ask him about it at practice tomorrow if people are curious. But generally speaking, they're just testing out different rotation kinks. And I think normally Jaylen Brown last year played the entire first quarter, and he individually really benefited from that. This year they swapped, so Tatum's starting the entire first quarter, and he's really benefiting from that. And I think it's just a testament to it. It makes life easier when you play the entire first 12 minutes and you play a little bit against the opposing team's bench as well. And so we'll see whether that's, whether the Jaylen Brown no longer playing the full first quarter thing is something that lasts long term. But I think what I observed from the Hawks game is that Jaylen just had it going in the first quarter, and it's just been a while for him since he's had a big game like that. And so I think probably Joe and the staff just wanted to let him kind of keep riding the hot hand. So we'll see. Question about Queta. I think that Queta is not getting exposed, but I feel like, there was a lot of excitement, and I'll take 100% of the responsibility. I'm super excited about him. I still am. But it just makes it so that the reality is that he's not a perfect NBA player. If he was an NBA starting center caliber player that's not going to ever make mistakes, he would be getting that kind of money, and he'd be on a team with that kind of opportunity. But he's going to have his highs and lows. I thought that he had some low moments these last few games. And part of it is scheming for him and knowing him. Jordi Fernandez, who coaches the Nets, he also knows Queta quite well. He was his assistant coach on the Sacramento Kings. So maybe that was a part of it, is just, really being intimately familiar with some of his mistakes. But the reality is that this is a really complicated defensive system that the Celtics play. It's one that I try my best to learn and understand, so I can write and cover and talk about the game. And it's really hard sometimes to understand what they're doing. And I can't imagine actually being thrown in there. And Queta just doesn't have as much basketball experience as most guys that are in the NBA. And so to me, it's like a learning curve. And he's going to have moments where his athleticism, his pure athleticism and instincts are enough to kind of carry him and make him look as good as possible. And there's going to be moments where he struggles. And those moments are going to continue throughout the year. They're going to continue forever because it's life. But I'm of the belief that I think the more he plays, the better, just because you really can't get much better with situational defense and understanding where to be. When you're just watching, playing it is a whole different story. So we'll see if those minutes continue. Luke, I think, has his own things that he brings to the table, but I love the idea of them playing Queta more, just because it's the upside's there. I asked Al about Queta earlier this week, or was it last week? And he said, once a game he does something where okay, he's the only person on the team that can do that. And so there's the raw potential, there's the ceiling, but then there's also the understanding that he's going to make mistakes. And certainly, yeah, I think when he's coming, you can think about how to exploit those more. In Indiana, when you just came in the fourth quarter and hadn't played, you can catch opposing teams off guard. But part of it is also just who they're playing against. So, yeah, so we'll see. Okay, I'm just going to scroll through here because I'm realizing a little bit behind. Yeah, question here about comment about Queta just on the topic. I don't think he's a Rob Williams type character. Rob Williams has been looking great in Portland, so I'm super happy to see that, and happy that he's healthy, and hopefully he can stay healthy. And so yeah, he's somebody that is a unicorn. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I don't think Queta is a Rob type player, but I think that there haven't been a lot of players that have even shown any inkling or flash of Rob Williams over the last few years in Boston. And so Queta at least can do little things that maybe make people feel excited about him. And so it's probably more that how many Rob Williams comparisons have there even been to make over the last 5 years in Boston? None. And so Queta's as close as maybe we're getting. So maybe that's more what it is. But you're right. It really is not. It's not really a fair expectation to give him. And just Rob's thing is he's such a good help side defender. Just is rim protection. That's just not going to be Queta right now. But yeah, I want to catch more Rob Williams film, because I've just been watching box scores and highlights, and he looks great. So happy to hear. Okay. Okay, Sam Hauser, I mentioned this earlier, but I asked him about it at shoot around this week and asked him how his back was feeling, and he said great. Abby followed up and asked, like, has it been bothering him at all? And he said here and there. He's wearing a back brace. He's wearing heating pads. He's stretching a lot. That's as much as we're going to get. So the reality is he's been dealing with this since the summer. So that shows you that there's something there. It's not just like, he's a little sore for the last few weeks. Like, it's something that's been relatively long-term. Like, it's been a few months on and off. So it's a little bit of a cause for concern. I wish we could get more information so we could know more, but we're not going to. So for now, those are my observations. I asked him, that's what he said. And I think a lot of like the shooting stuff is just rhythm too. Like, he missed some games, he was playing less minutes, he wasn't getting as many touches. So I think he'll be fine. He'll be able to play and contribute and help, even if he's not 100% with his back. But yeah, back stuff is just tough. You don't want it to be something that lingers. And the fact that it's something that's bothered him since the summer, like, doesn't bode the best. Same with the Jaylen Brown thing, like the fact that he said that it's been something that's bothering him since training camp. Like, both of those guys, hard to assess like exactly how important or how concerning those injuries are, because they are so up and down, and they both have been playing. So it's like, how worried are you going to be about guys that are playing? And we've been asking and not getting a ton of information. So we'll see. But I thought he looked good last night. I mean, he had 4 threes, 4 of 10. I always talk about, I think Hauser getting looks is like a really good reflection of like how the ball is moving. And so when he gets 10 shots, like, usually that's a really good sign for the offense. It's very rare that Hauser takes 10 shots, and it was a bad offense night for the Celtics. So, but yeah, if I hear anything more from Hauser, I'll let you guys know. But also, you would imagine that if it was like really cause for concern, he just would be missing more time because they can afford for him to not play right now. So that's a good one. Okay, so I'm seeing, these were the reaction when I was talking about Pritchard, about Cam Thomas. Okay, I'm glad. I thought I might get cooked, but I think the fan base is high on Payton Pritchard right now. So we'll see. Okay, a lot of Pritchard fans. Wow, guys. Yeah, that contract, I think if people at the time when it was signed, it was such a brilliant move because he really was coming off a season where he wasn't playing at all. Now, what was it, 4 years, 32 million or something like that? Really one of the best contracts in the league. So, and I'm sure his next one will be bigger. So yeah, and Van Fleet has a monster contract in Houston. So it was just a timing thing. I think that Pritchard was signing off of a year where he hadn't played. And so the Celtics were kind of banking on what he could do. And I love his mindset. I remember when I started, people were, other reporters were kind of like, oh, he's really quiet. He's hard to get. It's hard to get like him talking post game. I actually think that he's really grown in that regard as well. Like, I think he knows he's like an inspiration to a lot of people. And so he likes reflecting on like just how hard he's worked, his mindset, his approach. So I always find him to be very illuminating when he talks post game. Okay, and let's do a quick, feel free to continue putting in some questions. I'm going a little bit over, but I think I have time. It's okay. Just a quick message from our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So you can now win 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Bobby and I have been doing Prize Picks before games. You can catch those on CLNS's social medias where we predict what we think who's going to score points, assists, rebounds, any Celtics players you can do. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So this week, you could look at Luka Doncic for more than 31.5 points, or Steph Curry for more than 4 3-pointers, Anthony Davis for more than 11 rebounds. Giannis, he's been going off. He had 59 last night, so he'd probably be a good person to do more than for points. So all you have to do is download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, I'm going to scroll through here. I'm realizing that we are, I'm realizing I'm falling a little bit behind in these comments. So if there's a question you really want to answer, put it in again just so I don't miss it. Because I'm realizing I'm gonna miss some of these. Okay, we can talk about this. The Nike thing was kind of wild. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this, but Jaylen obviously has his beef with Nike. He thinks that that's why he didn't make the U.S. Olympic team. I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked into it at all. Maybe it would be something that I could investigate as a journalist, like reach out to Nike or whatever. But he started his own shoe line, 741 Performance. They've been cool to watch. I didn't love them when I first saw them, just from like an aesthetic standpoint, and then now that I see him playing in them more, I think they're pretty cool. But yeah, the big story out of today is that Jaylen Brown said that Giannis was a child on Sunday when they the Celtics played the Bucks, and I don't know if like he needed to react like that, but basically Giannis, for those of you that somehow missed this, I'm sure most of you saw, but elbowed him in the head or elbowed him pretty hard. Was called for the offensive foul and then like acted like he was going in for like the handshake or to be like, oh, you're good, and then did like the you thought, like that old playground trick. So afterwards, Jaylen was asked about it, and he said that Giannis is a child. And I think probably what bothered him was not the fact that Giannis was like did a little trick on him. I think it was probably more the fact that he just got elbowed in the head, and then instead of getting apologized to, he was like kind of made fun of, I guess, or whatever. But he said that post game. The one thing about Jaylen, he will always give the quote post game. Everybody knows that the reporters know to ask him because he'll say it. He said it about the Grant Williams thing. He was like, I thought Grant Williams and Jayson Tatum were friends. I guess they're not. Like, he always has his one-liner. So I'm not surprised that he said that Giannis is a child thing. But then Giannis had 59 points last night, and the Bucks win over the Pistons. And Nike tweeted nothing childish about him or something. And Jaylen, was a subtweet obviously towards Jaylen Brown's comments, who's not a Nike athlete. But then it's also weird because Nike does all the NBA jerseys, so technically they're all kind of Nike athletes in a sense. And Jaylen quote tweeted that and said you guys have a weird energy or something. So I think it's funny. I hope that it's not why he didn't make the Olympic team, because that would not be funny. But I think otherwise, I get his point about Nike. I get his point about a lot of large corporations. It's cool that he does his own thing. I'm always open to hearing about it. I'm always open to asking him about it. So I guess I don't have too strong of a take, but it was some entertainment here on my Thursday afternoon. I don't like the New Jerseys, but also I'm the least interested person in aesthetics. So I always see the debates on my social media film, and I never really care that much, honestly, either way. So I saw people didn't love it. It does look a little bit like the Oregon Ducks jerseys. So for those of you that haven't checked it out, feel free to do so. Baylor Shireman. Let's talk Baylor Shireman really quick, because I'm going to see him tomorrow in Maine and then also on Sunday. So I'll have a lot more to say. I'll do a show on Sunday, probably after the 2 Maine games, just to debrief what I learned in Maine. Baylor, I thought, had a tough, limited preseason. But again, I think there's a lot of times overreactions when we're watching basketball games, because there's an understanding of okay, why isn't this guy hitting his open three? And it's he's played for 2 minutes in this game, or he's attempted 8 3-pointers all of preseason. It doesn't really mean anything. Baylor struggled in very limited minutes, but he really, really excelled in the G League in 2 games, averaging 27.5 points per game in those 2 games, and just shooting lights out, passing the ball, rebounding, defending. There's a big difference between Maine and the NBA, but also there are a lot of guys that go to Maine and don't dominate. And so it's a good sign. I think that he will be able to succeed in the NBA. Ultimately, I think it might take a little bit of time. And my stance on this has been pretty consistent from the beginning, that just because he's 24 doesn't mean that there's not going to be a transition to getting into the league, into excelling. And so not everybody has the Jaron McCain situation where he got drafted and has been pretty much scorching hot off the bat, and it's just been phenomenal for Philadelphia and a bright spot for them. I think a lot of guys need a little bit of time, and that doesn't reflect on what they're going to accomplish down the road. I remember Pritchard struggling early on with shot creation. Those things are a distant memory now. So obviously Baylor's a little bit older, but I think that he'll be fine. But I'll have more to say after watching him this weekend, so we can follow up more on that. Okay. How many games will the Celtics win this year? They won 64 last year, right? 64-18. I think they're going to win. I might have guessed earlier this season, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't remember exactly what I guessed, but right now I would guess 59. That's going to be my guess. Probably I'm on video at one point saying something different, so apologies if that's the case. Yeah, it was 4 for 30. This is the Pritchard contract, I think. Okay, question. Do you think the Celtics will win our group in... Sorry, I'm misreading this. Do you think if we win in our group, the Celtics will advance to the NBA Cup? So they lost the first game to Atlanta, but they only lost by 1. So that's like the good sign, I guess, as far as looking at the numbers. And then next week, Cleveland, who somehow are still undefeated, ridiculous. I've only caught a couple Cleveland games. If you guys have watched more, I'm curious what people have observed from watching Cleveland, but just not the start that people were expecting. But they're going to need to be pretty much perfect moving forward, because I have a feeling that Cleveland's going to be pretty perfect moving forward. So Tuesday's game is going to be huge. I'll be covering it. We'll be on the ground. We'll talk about kind of what we are seeing there. But I think I never thought they were going to win the NBA Cup. I just don't feel like. I think it's really hard to be a championship contender and to be going for championship and also the cup. Like last year, we saw the Lakers won, and like they weren't even really a much of a playoff team. So yeah, I think you're gonna want them as back, especially after the way the Hawks game started. Like they're gonna want to show that they are taking these games seriously. But I would if I had to guess, like I think Cleveland right now has a lot of regular season momentum. Like they'll probably come out of this group. But just a guess, so we'll see. Thank you. Thanks so much, all of you. Maine Celtics tickets are a lot cheaper. You can get them on Game Time, absolutely. And Celtics tickets were super expensive. It sucks. I know. I met fans in Charlotte that were like, I flew here and went to a game because it was cheaper, and I'm getting 2 back-to-back games, and that's the way to do it. So if you want to catch like good Celtics basketball in a really good environment, go to Maine. Like I really recommend it. The atmosphere is amazing. Everybody's super, super nice. Maybe it's just because I live in Boston. We were a little rude here, but everybody's super friendly. There's a lot of good food in Portland. I'm going tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. It's kind of like almost like an off day thing to do, except obviously I'll be covering it too. And you'll get to see the draft picks. You'll get to see Baylor Scheierman and Anton Watson, and maybe at certain points this year, maybe even Jordan Walsh, maybe even Drew Peterson. JD Davison's there right now. JD Davison is 6 points away from becoming the all-time franchise scoring leader. So that's going to probably happen tomorrow. So yeah, if you're in New England and you want to catch like some Celtics basketball, even if it's not like the Boston Celtics, highly recommend. You can get tickets for like $15, I think. So check it out. Okay. And then I get these questions a lot. When Bobby playing one-on-one, I get the question about Jack too. Honestly, like Jack's been trying to get me to play with him for a long time, and I've been ducking. So if you watch Jack's pregame show, how about them Celtics, then you guys can stop bothering him because it's my fault. So we'll play at some point. I broke my finger during the season playing basketball, like the beginning of the NBA season, and so that's made me like not want to play as much. So but it's fine now. So now I have no excuses. So we'll see. This is funny. I mean, not actually, but it's a little funny. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all so much. It's so fun to see so many people here. I feel like I'm getting to know a lot of the commenters from the Garden Report, the show. And yeah, this has been super fun. We got a lot of people on here today, over a couple hundred. So yeah, that's awesome. And I'll do something this weekend for Maine. As always, my DMs are open for like journalism things. So reach out if you have questions, things you want me to ask. I've actually asked questions in press conferences specifically because people have asked me that they want to get the answers to those questions. So you are welcome to do that. Also, please subscribe to You Got Boston. All these shows are being streamed on, both on the CLNS media and then also on my YouTube, but I just want to make sure that I have like all those people subscribed. So they're always there. And so you can watch or whatever, but subscribe to You Got Boston if you can. Tell a friend. And we'll do something this weekend as well. So I'll catch you guys all later. We'll have coverage post-game Saturday after the Celtics-Raptors game live from the Garden. So we'll have normal Garden Report. But yeah, I'll have some G League stuff as well. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your days and have a great weekend.